The chamber was silent as the votes came in. One by one, representatives from 47 alien civilizations pressed their approval markers. Green lights filled the massive circular hall like stars appearing in a night sky. Ambassador Taeyang stood in the center of it all, watching humanity's fate being decided by creatures who had never walked on Earth. The Galactic Senate had gathered for an emergency session. The topic was simple and terrifying. Should humanity be allowed to continue existing as a spacefaring species? For 6 hours, delegates had spoken. They listed human crimes and violations. They talked about aggressive expansion and military buildup. They mentioned broken protocols and ignored warnings. Taeyang listened to every word. His face showed nothing. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years. In that time, he had learned to read alien body language. He could tell when the Valorians were lying by the way their neck ridges flattened. He knew the Krathos were nervous when their claws clicked together rapidly. He understood that when the ancient Luminians spoke slowly, they were hiding something. Right now, he could see fear in all of them. That interested him more than their anger. The final vote appeared on the holographic display above the chamber. Unanimous. War was declared. Every single civilization in the Senate had voted to destroy humanity. The speaker, an elderly Luminian with silver skin that seemed to glow, announced the decision formally. Her voice echoed through the station. The Galactic Senate has voted. Humanity is declared a hostile species. Military action is authorized. Ambassador Taeyang, you have 48 hours to return to your world and inform your government. After that time, our combined fleets will begin operations against all human territories. Taeyang bowed slightly. It was a gesture of respect that the aliens had learned to recognize from humans. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was not a big smile, just a small curve of his lips. But in the absolute silence of the chamber, that smile felt loud. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The Valorian military commander's ridges stood straight up. A Krathos senator's claws began clicking frantically. Even the Luminian speaker paused, her glowing skin flickering slightly. I thank the Senate for the time to return home, Taeyang said. His voice was steady and polite. I will deliver your message to my government immediately. Is there anything else? The speaker recovered her composure. That is all, Ambassador. You are dismissed. Taeyang bowed again and turned to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him. They expected panic. They expected pleading or anger or desperate negotiation. Instead, they got a smile and polite words. It bothered them. He could tell. The walk to his shuttle felt longer than usual. The Eternal Deliberation Station was enormous, a structure built over thousands of years by dozens of civilizations. Its halls were wide enough for the largest species to move comfortably. Taeyang's footsteps echoed on floors made from materials Earth scientists still could not identify. He passed other beings in the corridors. Some looked at him with what might have been pity. Others showed satisfaction. A few seemed confused. Taeyang kept walking, his expression neutral again, the smile gone. His shuttle was small compared to the alien vessels docked nearby. It looked fragile and primitive. That was intentional. Humanity had learned early that looking weak had advantages. Let them underestimate human technology. Let them think humans were barely capable of space travel. Inside the shuttle, Taeyang sealed the door and activated the security protocols. Only then did he allow himself a real smile. He sat in the pilot's chair and opened the encrypted communication channel. The screen flickered to life, showing a woman in a military uniform. Admiral Minji looked at him with raised eyebrows. Well? She asked. It's done, Taeyang replied. Unanimous vote. They declared war exactly as we predicted. Minji nodded slowly. 48 hours to get home? Yes. Then we don't have much time. She looked at something off-screen, probably another display showing fleet positions. I'll give the order. Protocol Endgame is active. Make it count, Taeyang said. We've been preparing for 15 years. Everything depends on the next few weeks. They have no idea what's coming, Minji said. There was no joy in her voice, only grim determination. They think they're hunting us. They don't realize they're the prey. The transmission ended. Taeyang set course for Earth and engaged the faster-than-light drive. As his shuttle jumped into the stream of folded space, he thought about the years of planning. The secret preparations. The intelligence gathering. the careful positioning of assets throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Senate thought they had made a decision today. They thought they had voted to destroy humanity. What they had actually done was spring a trap that had been waiting for them all along. They had given humanity exactly what it needed: permission to act, justification to reveal what humans had really been doing for the past decade and a half. Taeyang looked at the stars streaming past his viewport. In 48 hours, the galaxy would learn something new about humans. When pushed to the edge, when threatened with extinction, humanity did not panic or surrender. Humanity fought back, and they had been ready to fight back for a very long time. The Senate had declared war. But humanity had been waiting. Admiral Minji stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched the countdown timer. 47 minutes until the war declaration would be transmitted across the entire galaxy. Her ship floated in the darkness of the Kepler belt, hidden among thousands of asteroids. From here, she commanded the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. And the aliens had no idea it existed. The bridge was quiet. Her crew worked at their stations with focused efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Some of them had spent their entire military careers preparing for a war that might never come. Now it was here, and everyone knew their role. "Status report," Minji said. Commander Hyejin looked up from her tactical display. "All fleet elements are in position. Stealth systems are holding at maximum efficiency. The Senate Armada is beginning to mobilize at their staging points. They're moving exactly according to the projected patterns." Minji nodded. Of course they were. Humanity had studied Senate military doctrine for over a decade. They knew how the aliens would organize their forces. They knew which species would take command roles. They knew the routes the fleets would use to travel through space. Every piece of information had been gathered carefully, quietly, by humans who the Senate thought were simple traders and scientists. "Communication from Earth Command," the signals officer announced. "Ambassador Taeyang's shuttle has cleared Senate space. He confirms the declaration was unanimous." "Unanimous," Minji repeated softly. She had expected that, but hearing it confirmed still sent a chill through her. 47 civilizations, some of them thousands of years old, had all agreed that humanity needed to be destroyed. It would have been terrifying if humanity had not been ready. The countdown timer hit 0. "Execute protocol endgame," Minji said. Across human space, things began to change. Structures that had looked like simple mining stations suddenly powered up weapon systems. Satellites that were supposed to be weather monitors activated military-grade sensors. Civilian transport ships shed their outer hulls, revealing combat vessels underneath. In 100 different locations, humanity dropped its disguise. On the bridge display, Minji watched icons appear as human forces reported ready status. There were so many more than the Senate suspected. For 15 years, humanity had been building ships in hidden facilities. They had been training soldiers in secret bases. They had been developing weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. "Detection network is fully active," Hyejin reported. "We have eyes on 7 major Senate fleet groupings. Total count is approximately 3,200 vessels." Minji studied the display. The Senate fleets were massive, each one containing hundreds of ships. They were moving confidently through space they controlled, space they considered safe. They had no idea that millions of tiny sensors were watching them. Human probes disguised as space debris and natural objects tracked every movement. "They're heading for our outer colonies first," Hyejin said. "New Busan, Nova Seoul, and Port Daegu are the primary targets." "Let them come," Minji said. "Captain Doyen's group is ready at New Busan?" "Yes, ma'am. His stealth frigates are in the asteroid field, fully hidden. He reports that the quantum mines are positioned and armed." Minji allowed herself a small smile. Quantum displacement mines were one of humanity's secret weapons. They existed partially outside normal space, invisible to conventional sensors. When activated, they would phase into reality inside enemy formations. The Senate had never encountered anything like them. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles, not weapons that appeared inside their defensive perimeters. "Order all stealth units to maintain absolute silence," Minji said. "No active sensors, no transmissions. We let the Senate forces get comfortable. We let them think they have the advantage. Then we hit them all at once." In the Kepler belt, Captain Doyen received his orders aboard the frigate Shadow Strike. His ship was small, only 50 meters long, with a crew of 20. But it was coated in materials that absorbed sensor beams and scattered radiation. To any alien scanner, his ship looked like just another asteroid. Doyen had been in position for 3 weeks. His crew had stayed quiet and patient, practicing the discipline that human commanders had drilled into every stealth unit. Now, watching his display, he could see the Senate fleet approaching the new Busan system. There were over 400 ships in that group alone. They looked unstoppable. Passive sensors only, Doyen whispered to his crew, even though there was no one nearby to hear them. Record everything. Fleet intelligence wants complete data on their formations and tactics. The Senate ships moved in a pattern that had probably been successful for centuries. Large battleships in the center, surrounded by cruisers and destroyers, with scout ships spreading out ahead and on the flanks. It was a formation designed to protect the most valuable vessels while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. It was also predictable. And humanity had built an entire battle plan around that predictability. Doyen watched as the alien fleet entered the kill zone. Hundreds of quantum mines waited in carefully calculated positions. Human ships lurked in every shadow. The colonists on New Busan had already evacuated to underground shelters weeks ago, though the Senate did not know that. To alien sensors, the colony still showed normal activity patterns, all generated by automated systems. "They're taking the bait," Doyen's sensor officer whispered. The Senate fleet began establishing orbit around New Busan. Their commanders were probably feeling confident. They had overwhelming force. The human colony had not fired a single shot. Victory seemed certain. Doyen's communication system lit up with an encrypted signal from the Indomitable. Just 2 words. Execute now. In the New Busan system, death arrived silently. 400 quantum mines phased into real space simultaneously, appearing inside the Senate fleet formation. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the mines detonated. Explosions ripped through the alien fleet. Ships that had never been touched by enemy fire in centuries of service suddenly found their hulls torn open. The aliens had no time to react, no chance to defend. In the first 10 seconds, over 400 vessels were destroyed or crippled. Then the human stealth fleet attacked. Doyen's frigate and 30 others like it emerged from hiding, their railguns firing. The kinetic projectiles, moving at incredible speeds, punched through alien shields that were designed to deflect energy beams. More ships died. The Senate fleet tried to respond, but they were in chaos. Their communications were jammed by human electronic warfare systems. Their sensors were overwhelmed by decoys and false targets. Their doctrine had no answer for this type of attack. Admiral Minji watched the battle data flow in. New Busan was not the only target. Similar ambushes were happening at 7 other locations across human space. Everywhere the Senate forces went, they found not helpless colonies but carefully prepared kill zones. "Casualty estimates?" she asked. "Preliminary reports suggest 60% losses for the Senate forces," Yejin replied. "The survivors are retreating, 60%. In the first engagement, Minji felt no satisfaction, only grim necessity. This was war. Humanity had not wanted it, but they would win it. The Senate had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. 48 hours seemed generous. But humanity had been preparing for 15 years. The trap was sprung, and the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The Valorian Admiral Cormeth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The numbers made no sense. His fleet had contained 412 warships when they entered the New Busan system. Now, less than 3 hours later, only 168 remained. The rest were debris. "How?" he asked. His neck ridges flat against his skin in a sign of shock. How did they do this? His tactical officer had no answer. The attack had come from nowhere. Explosions inside their formation. Then human ships appearing from hiding spots that their sensors had swept multiple times. The humans had weapons that bypassed shields. Strategies that defeated formations perfected over millennia. It should not have been possible. "Sir, we're receiving similar reports from the other attack groups," the communications officer said. Her voice trembled. "The fleets at Nova Sol, Port Daegu, and the other targets have all suffered massive losses. Some groups are reporting 80% casualties." Cormeth felt his blood turn cold. This was supposed to be a quick war. The Galactic Senate had voted unanimously because everyone agreed humanity could be crushed easily. Humans were young, primitive, barely 200 years into space travel. "How could they have done this?" "Order all surviving ships to retreat," he said. "Get us out of this system now." As the Valorian fleet limped away from New Busan, Commander Hyejin watched from the bridge of her destroyer, the Swift Vengeance. Her wolf pack of 6 ships had accounted for 37 confirmed kills during the ambush. The railguns had performed even better than expected. The aliens simply had no defense against kinetic weapons moving at such high speeds. "Should we pursue?" her weapons officer asked. Hyejin shook her head. "Let them go. We want survivors. We want them to spread the word about what happened here." Fear is a weapon too, she was right. Within hours, reports from the disastrous first engagements reached every corner of Senate space. The story spread quickly. Humanity had not just defended itself. Humanity had butchered the combined fleets of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And they had done it with contemptuous ease. On the eternal deliberation station, panic replaced confidence. The Senate chamber filled with angry delegates demanding explanations. How had their intelligence been so wrong? How had humanity prepared such defenses? Why had no one seen this coming? Senator Jisoo of Earth sat quietly in the human delegation area and watched the chaos. She had replaced Ambassador Taeyang after the war declaration, as planned. Her role was different. While Taeyang had been diplomatic and careful, Jisoo's job was to be direct and honest, sometimes brutally so. The Luminian speaker called for order, her glowing skin flickering with stress. "We must understand what happened. How did humanity achieve this victory?" Jisoo stood. "Would you like me to explain?" The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to her. The human senator was young by galactic standards, barely 40 years old, but she carried herself with absolute confidence. She walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where Taeyang had stood during the war declaration. "You want to know how we did it?" Jisoo asked. "The answer is simple. We knew you were going to declare war. We've known for years." Gasps and angry muttering filled the chamber. The Krathos senator stood, his claws clicking. "That is impossible." "Our deliberations were secret," Jisoo smiled. "No, they were not. We have been monitoring your communications for over a decade. Every discussion about containing humanity, every debate about our expansion, every tactical planning session. We watched it all. We heard every word." She pulled out a small data device and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing a recording of a Senate Security Council meeting from 5 years ago. In the recording, several senators discussed the human problem and whether military action might eventually be necessary. The recording was crystal clear, obviously authentic. "This is one of thousands of such recordings we possess," Jisoo said calmly. "We have infiltrated your communication networks, your diplomatic channels, even personal devices of key delegates. While you were planning to destroy us, we were watching and preparing." The chamber erupted in outrage. Delegates shouted accusations. Security concerns were raised. But underneath the anger, Jisoo could see fear. They had been compromised completely and they never knew. The Luminian speaker demanded silence. When order was restored, she asked, "Why did you not reveal this information before? Why allow the war to begin?" "Because you would not have listened," Jisoo replied. "For years we tried to negotiate as equals. You treated us like children. You created rules to limit our expansion. You blocked our applications for full Senate membership. You spoke about us in your councils as if we were a problem to be managed, not people to be respected." She looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes. "We knew you would eventually declare war. Your conversations made that clear. So we prepared. We built ships in secret. We developed new weapons. We trained our forces. And we waited for you to make the first move." "This is unacceptable," the Krathos senator said. "You speak of espionage and deception." "We speak of survival," Jisoo replied coldly. "You were planning genocide. We were planning to live. Do not act surprised that we used every advantage available." Admiral Minji's face appeared on the holographic displays throughout the chamber. The transmission was being broadcast from human space. "Senators of the galaxy, this is Admiral Minji of Earth's Defense Forces. I am speaking to clarify our position. We have just destroyed 60% of the forces you sent against us. We did this in the opening hours of a war you started. We can do it again." The aliens watched in silence as Minji continued, "But we do not want more bloodshed. We are offering you a chance to end this now. Withdraw your forces. Recognize humanity as an equal member of the galactic community. Or continue this war and face complete defeat. The choice is yours." The transmission ended. In the Senate chamber, delegates looked at each other uncertainly. They had started this war confident in their superiority. Now the confidence was shattered. The old Luminian Empress stood slowly. She was among the most ancient beings in the galaxy, over 3,000 years old. Her voice carried authority built over centuries. Humanity's espionage is indeed troubling, she said, but their military capability is terrifying. They have shown us technology we did not know existed. They have defeated our fleets with ease. Perhaps we were wrong to underestimate them. For a moment, Jisoo thought the Empress might call for peace. But then the old being's expression hardened. However, we cannot allow this insult to stand. We cannot let a species barely 2 centuries old dictate terms to civilizations thousands of years older. I call for total mobilization. We will bring every reserve force, every defense fleet, every military asset. Humanity will be erased. The vote was called. It passed by a large majority. The war would continue. The Senate would throw everything they had at humanity. It would be the largest military campaign in galactic history. Jisoo watched the vote with a sinking feeling. She had hoped they might see reason. Instead, they chose pride over wisdom. She activated her secure communicator and sent a message to Earth. Just 4 words. They chose extinction. The Senate had made its decision. Humanity would respond accordingly, and the galaxy was about to learn that winning the first battle was not the same as winning the war. The real conflict was just beginning. General Junho watched the alien armada approach on the tactical display. 8,347 warships, ships from every member civilization of the Galactic Senate, gathered into the largest military force in recorded history. They were coming to Earth with one purpose: complete destruction of humanity's homeworld. They really committed everything, Commander Heejin said. She had been reassigned from her destroyer to help coordinate Earth's defense. There won't be anything left to guard their own systems. Junho nodded. That was exactly what humanity had hoped for. The Senate was so focused on Earth, so desperate to crush humanity's home, that they had left their own worlds vulnerable. But they did not need to know that yet. Status of our fleet? Junho asked. Scattered throughout the outer system as planned, Heejin replied. To their sensors, it looks like we're disorganized and unable to form a proper defense. They probably think we're panicking. Good. Let them think that. Junho studied the approaching formation. The aliens had learned from their earlier defeats. This time they were advancing slowly, with scouts checking every asteroid and moon. Their formation was tight and defensive. They were not taking chances. It would not matter. On the bridge of the Luminian command ship Eternal Truth, the old Empress watched Earth grow larger on the view screen. The blue and white planet looked peaceful and beautiful. It was almost sad that such a world had to be destroyed. But humanity had left them no choice. All fleets report ready, her tactical officer said. We will enter weapons range of Earth's orbital defenses in 2 hours. The Empress nodded. Proceed carefully. The humans have surprised us before. Do not underestimate them again. But as they passed through the asteroid belt, the Empress felt confident. Human ships were scattered and outnumbered. Earth's orbital defenses looked minimal, certainly not enough to stop this armada. The war would end here at humanity's birthplace. The first surprise came as they entered the belt. Asteroids began moving, rotating to reveal hidden surfaces. Weapons platforms emerged from camouflage, thousands of them. The asteroids were not natural. They were disguised defense stations. All ships defensive formation, the Empress ordered. The Senate fleet contracted, ships moving closer together for mutual protection. It was standard doctrine when facing multiple threats. Overlapping shields and coordinated fire would handle the platforms. The Empress had fought battles for 3,000 years. She knew how to respond. That was when Junho activated the second part of his trap. Fire the lens, he said quietly. Around Earth, thousands of satellites suddenly activated. They had looked like communication and weather systems. Now they revealed their true purpose. Each satellite was part of a massive gravitational lens array, positioned in precise orbital patterns. Together, they bent space itself. The lens focused energy from Earth's orbital solar collectors. These collectors had been gathering power for months, storing it in quantum batteries. Now all that energy was released at once, channeled through the gravitational lens and concentrated into a single beam. The beam hit the compressed Senate fleet like a hammer. It was not a laser or plasma weapon. It was focused solar radiation at an intensity nature never intended. The beam cut through ships as if they were paper. Shields designed to stop conventional weapons meant nothing against this focused stellar fire. In the first 3 seconds, over 200 ships were destroyed. The aliens tried to scatter, to break the tight formation that made them such a perfect target. That was when the anvil fell. The scattered human fleet elements throughout the system suddenly converged from multiple directions. They had not been disorganized. They had been positioned perfectly for a coordinated strike. Captain Doyen's frigate group hit the Senate left flank. His railguns fired in perfect synchronization, targeting command ships that coordination networks identified. Each shot was calculated, no ammunition wasted. The aliens had numbers, but humans had precision. The battle for Earth lasted 4 days. It was not a clean fight. Ships died on both sides. Human casualties were significant. But the difference was in preparation and doctrine. Human commanders had studied this exact scenario for years. Every contingency had been planned for. Every tactical situation had been wargamed dozens of times. The Senate fleet had numbers and experience, but they were fighting a defensive battle around a planet that was actually a giant fortress. Every moon had hidden weapons. Every satellite was part of a coordinated defense network. Even Earth's surface contributed, with ground-based lasers firing through atmospheric openings created by weather control systems. On the second day, the Valorian Admiral Cormeth, who had survived the disaster at New Busan, found himself fighting alongside the Luminian Empress. Their ships were trying to break through to Earth's orbital space to establish a foothold for landing forces. "This is madness," Cormeth said over the communication channel. "They have turned their entire home system into a weapon. How did we not see this?" "Because we did not look," the Empress replied bitterly. "We assumed they were primitive. We saw what we wanted to see." A human destroyer appeared on their flank, firing. Cormeth's ship took hits, shields flaring. He returned fire, but the human ship was already moving, its engines more agile than his larger vessel. That was another advantage humans had. Their ships were smaller and faster. In the close quarters of Earth's orbital space, that mattered more than raw firepower. By the third day, the Senate fleet was trapped. Human forces had encircled them, using the very tactics the aliens had tried to use at the war's start. The kill box was perfectly executed. Senate ships that tried to retreat found their escape routes blocked. Those that tried to push forward met concentrated fire. General Junho watched the battle unfold from orbital Fortress Olympus, a massive station that controlled Earth's defensive network. He took no pleasure in the destruction. Every ship that died carried living beings. But this was necessary. The Senate had come to exterminate humanity. They had to be shown that such an attempt would fail utterly. "They're trying to surrender," Heejin reported on the 4th day. "Multiple ships are broadcasting cessation requests. Accept surrenders from anyone willing," Junho ordered. "But keep firing on those who continue fighting. Show mercy to those who ask, but no weakness to those who attack." By the end of the 4th day, it was over. Of the 8,000 ships that had come to Earth, only about 1,000 survived. Most of those had surrendered. The rest had managed to retreat into faster-than-light travel, limping away with damaged systems and shattered morale. The Luminian Empress was among the survivors. Her flagship was crippled but intact. When human Marines boarded to accept her surrender, she looked at them with ancient eyes and said, "You fought well, better than we deserved." The Marine commander, a young woman named Una, nodded respectfully. "The general offers you and your crew safety and medical care. The war does not have to mean cruelty." The Empress looked surprised. "You would show us mercy? After we came to destroy your world?" "We fight to protect ourselves," Una replied. "Not to be monsters." "There's a difference." In the Sol system, the wreckage of thousands of alien ships drifted in silent orbits. It would take years to clean up the battlefield. But Earth had survived. Humanity had defended its home against impossible odds. And they had done it not through luck or desperation, but through careful planning and tactical superiority. General Junho broadcast a message to all Senate forces throughout the galaxy. "This is General Junho of Earth's Defense Command. Your largest fleet has been defeated. Your homeworld assault has failed. We are offering peace terms. Withdraw from human space, end this war, or we will bring the fight to your worlds. Choose wisely." The siege of Earth was over, but the war was not. Now it was humanity's turn to attack. And the Senate was about to learn that defeating human forces in human space was hard. Stopping humans who decided to go on the offensive was impossible. Colonel Minho stood on the bridge of the carrier UES Righteous Dawn and studied the star map. His fleet Task Force Hammer consisted of 47 ships. It was small compared to the forces the Senate had thrown at Earth, but size was not everything. Minho's fleet was fast, well-trained, and had a specific mission. They were not here to conquer. They were here to prove a point. Approaching the Luminian home system, his navigator reported. No sign of defensive fleets. Looks like they really did commit everything to the Earth attack. Minho nodded. The Senate's desperation to destroy humanity had left their own worlds nearly defenseless. It was a strategic blunder that human planners had anticipated. The aliens had focused on offense and forgotten about defense. Now they would pay the price. Take us in, Minho ordered. But remember the rules of engagement. Military targets only. No civilian casualties. We're here to demonstrate capability, not commit atrocities. The fleet entered the Luminian system at high speed. The homeworld of the ancient Luminians appeared on the view screen, a planet covered in silver cities that had stood for thousands of years. Orbital stations and defense platforms surrounded it, but they were older models designed to protect against conventional threats. They had never faced human weapons. Target all military satellites and defense platforms, Minho said. Disable them, do not destroy. Show them we could kill but choose not to. His weapons officers went to work. Human missiles launched, but these were not explosive warheads. They were electromagnetic pulse devices, designed to shut down systems without causing permanent damage. Within 10 minutes, every military installation in orbit around the Luminian homeworld was dark and powerless. Not a single shot had been fired at the planet's surface. Not one civilian facility had been touched. But the message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed everything. They chose not to. Minho opened a broadcast channel to the planet below. This is Colonel Minho of the Earth Defense Forces. Your orbital defenses have been disabled. Your world is completely unprotected. We could destroy your cities. We could kill billions, but we will not. Humanity does not wage war on innocence. This is a demonstration. We want peace, not extermination. Consider what we could have done and what we chose to do instead. The transmission ended. Minho's fleet withdrew from the system without firing another shot. The entire operation had taken less than 30 minutes. Similar operations were happening throughout Senate space. Human task forces struck at military installations across dozens of worlds. Each time they demonstrated overwhelming capability while carefully avoiding civilian harm. It was psychological warfare at its finest. The Senate members were learning that humanity could reach their homeworlds anytime they wanted. And humanity was showing restraint that the Senate itself had not. On the Valorian homeworld, Captain Doyen led a raid on a military research station. His Marines stormed the facility, secured classified materials about Senate weapons development, and withdrew. No Valorian civilians were harmed. The local defense forces barely had time to respond before the humans were gone. Did you see their faces? One of Doyen's Marines said during the extraction. They expected us to kill everyone. They looked shocked when we only took the military data. Doyen understood. The Senate had come to Earth planning genocide. They expected humans to respond the same way. Instead, humans fought with precision and mercy. It was unsettling the enemy more than brutal tactics ever could. Back on Earth, Dr. Sunhee was analyzing data from captured Senate communications and battle records. She was a xenosociology expert, someone who studied how alien societies thought and operated. What she was discovering troubled her deeply. Admiral Minji, you need to see this, Sunhee said during a briefing at Defense Command. Minji looked at the data Sunhee had compiled. It was a detailed analysis of Senate communications over the past 50 years. What am I looking at? The real reason they declared war, Sunhee replied. It was not because we were actually threatening them. It was because we were threatening their status. She brought up comparative charts showing technological advancement rates. Look at this. Most Senate civilizations have barely advanced technologically in the last 1,000 years. They reached a certain level and just stopped. They became comfortable, stagnant. And then humanity showed up, Minji said, understanding dawning. Exactly. We went from primitive spaceflight to FTL travel in under 2 centuries. We developed technologies they never imagined. We refused to accept their hierarchy. We challenged assumptions they had held for millennia. Sunhee looked grim. They did not declare war because we were dangerous to their safety. They declared war because we were dangerous to their sense of superiority. Admiral Minji sat back in her chair. So this entire war is about pride and ego. At its core, yes. The ancient civilizations could not accept that a young species might be better at something than they were. They built a system where age equals authority. We disrupted that system simply by existing and advancing rapidly. Minji thought about this for a long moment. If that is true, then defeating them militarily is not enough. We need to change the entire system. Otherwise, they will just try again in a few generations. Agreed, son, he said. The Galactic Senate itself is the problem. It is built on the idea that old civilizations should rule and young ones should follow. As long as that structure exists, species like humanity will always be threats to be eliminated. A strategic meeting was called. Earth's military and civilian leadership gathered to discuss options. The war was going well. Senate forces were in retreat across multiple fronts. But what came after military victory? General Junho spoke first. We can win this war. That is no longer in question. But what do we do with victory? Accept their surrender and join their corrupt system? That just delays the next conflict. We could refuse to join the Senate entirely, suggested one of the civilian leaders. Maintain our independence, stay separate. That solves nothing, said Senator Jisu, attending via holographic link from the Eternal Deliberation Station. If we stay separate, we are still a threat to their stability. They will rebuild and try again. We need to address the root cause. Ambassador Taiyang, who had returned to advisory duties after his time as ambassador, spoke carefully. The Senate itself must change, not just its military defeat, but its entire philosophy. The hierarchy based on age must end. A true democracy of species, where everyone has equal voice regardless of how long they have been in space. They will never accept that willingly, Junho said. The ancient civilizations have too much invested in the current system. Then we make them accept it, Minji said firmly. We have military superiority. We use it to force reform, not through conquest but through demonstration that their old system is dead. We show them that age does not equal wisdom and tradition does not equal correctness. The decision was made. Humanity would not just win the war. They would transform the galaxy. It was ambitious, perhaps even arrogant, but the alternative was a peace that would inevitably lead to another war. Better to face the hard questions now than pass them to future generations. Colonel Minho received new orders during his next operation. His fleet was to make contact with younger Senate species, civilizations that had only joined the galactic community in the last few thousand years. These species had often been treated as junior members, their voices ignored by the ancient powers. Tell them that humanity is fighting for a new system, Minho's orders read, one where age does not determine authority, where every civilization has equal say. Ask them if they want to be part of that change. The response was surprising. Many of the younger species were eager to talk. They had their own grievances with the Senate hierarchy. The Valorians, despite being at war with humanity, had junior members who privately expressed frustration with how their elders ran things. The Krathos had colonies that felt ignored by the homeworld leadership. Humanity was not just fighting a war. They were starting a revolution, and the galaxy would never be the same. The message spread through Senate space like fire. Captain Doyen transmitted it to every young civilization he encountered. Commander Hijin broadcast it to military units that were losing faith in their leadership. Even Colonel Minho's Marines shared it with alien soldiers they captured and then released. The old order is over. Join us in building something new. A galaxy where every voice matters, regardless of age or history, where merit determines leadership, not millennia of tradition, where young civilizations are partners, not subjects. The response created divisions throughout the Senate. The ancient powers, the civilizations that had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years, rejected the message completely. They saw it as human propaganda designed to break their unity, and they were right in a way. But that did not make the message wrong. Younger civilizations heard it differently. They remembered being dismissed in Senate chambers. They recalled having their ideas ignored because they were only a few thousand years old. They thought about the restrictions placed on their expansion, while ancient worlds kept their vast territories. The human message resonated with frustrations they had carried for generations. On the Krathos colony world of far reach, a young governor named Kresh listened to the human broadcast and made a decision. He contacted Doyen's fleet directly. We want to talk, not fight. Talk. Doyen reported this to Earth Command. Within days, Admiral Minji herself arrived at Far Reach with a small diplomatic escort. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a trading station that humans and Krathos both used. Kresh was young for his species, barely 300 years old. In Krathos society, that made him practically a child, but he governed an entire colony world, and he was tired of being told what to do by elders who had never left the homeworld. "Your war is just," Kresh said bluntly. "The Senate should not have attacked you. We younger worlds knew it was wrong. But our voices do not matter in the Senate," Minji nodded. "That is exactly the problem we want to fix. The Senate is not democratic. It is an aristocracy based on age. That system is broken. What do you propose instead?" Kresh asked. "A true federation. Every civilization gets equal representation. Decisions are made by vote, with each species having the same weight. New members are welcomed as equals, not subordinates. Technology and culture are shared freely, not hoarded by the old powers." Kresh's claws clicked together, a sign of excitement in Krathos' body language. "The elders will never accept this." "Then the elders will be left behind," Minji said. "We are not asking permission. We are building the new system with whoever wants to join. Those who cling to the old ways can stay separate. But they will not stop us." Over the following weeks, more young civilizations made contact. Not all of them joined humanity's cause, but many listened. A coalition began forming. Species that had been ignored or dismissed by the Senate found common cause with humanity. They called themselves the Reform Movement. The ancient powers watched this development with alarm. The Luminian Empress, now recovered from her injuries at Earth, called an emergency Senate session. But when she entered the chamber, she found it nearly empty. Of the 47 member civilizations, only 19 had sent representatives. The others were either too damaged from the war to participate or had stopped attending in protest. "This is a disaster," the Empress said to the Valorian Admiral Kormeth, who stood beside her in the depleted chamber. "The Senate is falling apart." "Perhaps it should," Kormeth replied quietly. His neck ridges were neutral, showing careful thought. "I have been thinking about what the humans said, about age not equaling wisdom. I have lived for 800 years, fought in dozens of wars. But in this conflict, I have learned more from humans who have lived barely a century than from all my centuries of experience." The Empress looked at him with surprise. "You support them?" "I support survival," Kormeth said. "And the truth is the humans are right. We became arrogant. We stopped learning. We assumed our ancient knowledge was superior to everything. But look what happened. A species 200 years old defeated forces we thought invincible. On Earth, Dr. Sunhee was coordinating with alien scientists and philosophers who wanted to help build the new system. They gathered virtually, representatives from a dozen species, discussing how a true federation might work. "The key is preventing any one group from dominating," said a Krathos scientist named Vresh. "The old Senate failed because the ancient civilizations controlled everything. They had veto power, permanent seats, more votes. The new system must prevent that." "Equal representation is essential," agreed a Valorian scholar. "But we also need to respect that different civilizations have different needs. A species of water breathers has different concerns than those who live in vacuum. The system must be flexible enough to handle that diversity." Sunhee listened to the discussions with hope. This was what humanity had wanted all along. Not domination but participation. Not control but cooperation. The fact that aliens were helping design the new system was perfect. It could not be a human empire in disguise. It had to be genuinely collaborative. Back in military operations, the war continued, but with a different character. Human forces no longer attacked military targets primarily. Instead, they focused on liberating colony worlds that wanted independence from their homeworld governments. Captain Doyen's Marines became peacekeepers, protecting young civilizations that declared for the reform movement. "This feels strange," one of Doyen's soldiers said during an operation on a Valorian colony world. "We're fighting Valorians to protect other Valorians." "Civil war is always complicated," Doyen replied. "But these colonists asked for our help. Their homeworld government wants to punish them for joining the reform movement. We will not let that happen." The battle was brief. Doyen's forces disabled the homeworld fleet that came to attack the colony, then withdrew. The colonists were free to govern themselves. It was a pattern repeated across multiple systems. Senator Jisoo, still on the Eternal Deliberation Station, found herself negotiating with a growing number of alien delegates who wanted to discuss the new federation. Some were genuinely interested in reform. Others were just trying to salvage what they could from the collapse of the old order. She treated both groups with respect but made the terms clear. If you join the new system, you accept equality, Jisoo said during one negotiation. Your civilization does not get special privileges because of age or past power. You will have one vote, same as everyone else. That is non-negotiable. The Krathos homeworld government, surprisingly, was one of the first major powers to agree. Their representative, an elder named Korsh, explained why. Our young are leaving us anyway. The colonies are declaring independence. We can try to stop them and tear our civilization apart, or we can accept change and stay united. I choose unity. The Luminians were harder to convince. The Empress clung to her authority, insisting that thousands of years of leadership earned them special consideration. But even within Luminian society, younger voices were calling for change. Eventually, facing internal pressure and external reality, the Empress agreed to join the new federation. But she made her displeasure clear. I do this to preserve my people, she said, not because I believe you are right. That is acceptable, Jisoo replied. You do not have to believe. You just have to participate honestly. By the 6th month of war, the Galactic Senate was effectively dead. Some civilizations still claimed loyalty to it, but it had no power, no unity, no purpose. In its place, discussions were happening on Earth about forming a new galactic government. The Federated Systems Alliance, they were calling it. Ambassador Taeyang, who had started this entire sequence of events with his calm smile in the Senate chamber, was chosen to lead the founding conference. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of civilizations gathered on Earth. They came from ancient powers and young colonies, from species that had fought against humanity, and those that had joined them. We are here to build something that has never existed, Taeyang said at the opening session. A truly democratic galactic government. It will not be perfect. We will make mistakes. But it will be better than what came before. It will be based on equality, merit, and cooperation, not age, tradition, and hierarchy. The work of building the new system would take months, but the revolution had succeeded. The galaxy had changed forever, and it all started because humanity refused to accept that things had to stay as they always had been. The Treaty of Sol was signed on a clear spring day in Geneva. Ambassador Taeyang stood before representatives from 73 civilizations. That number alone showed how much had changed. The old Senate had only 47 members, and many of those had been subordinate to ancient powers. Now colony worlds sent their own delegates. Young civilizations had equal voices. Even species that had been clients of larger empires came independently. Taeyang held the document that would restructure galactic civilization. It had taken 8 months to write. Every clause had been debated, every word chosen carefully. Representatives from dozens of species had contributed ideas. It was not a human document. It was a collaborative creation. This treaty dissolves the Galactic Senate, Taeyang read aloud. In its place, we establish the Federated Systems Alliance. Every member civilization has one vote in the assembly, regardless of age, size, or technological achievement. Decisions require a majority. No veto power exists. No permanent special privileges are granted. All members are equal. He continued reading through the major provisions. Free trade between systems, shared scientific research, collective defense agreements, protection for minority species, rights for colony worlds to self-governance. It was ambitious and idealistic. Some critics called it naive. But after a war that had cost millions of lives, naivety felt better than cynicism. The Luminian Empress was the first to sign after Taeyang. She looked older now, her silver skin less bright than before the war. She had resisted this moment for months, but eventually accepted that the old order was truly dead. Better to shape the new system than be excluded from it. I sign this for my people, she said quietly. Not for myself. I hope you build something better than what we had. Next came the Valorian Admiral Cormeth, now a civilian delegate after retiring from military service. His neck ridges were raised in a gesture of respect. The humans taught us that defeat can be a beginning, not an ending. I sign with hope. One by one, 73 civilizations endorsed the treaty. Some signed eagerly, believing in the new vision. Others signed reluctantly, accepting reality. A few signed with reservations, wanting to be part of the system even if they doubted it would work. But they all signed, not everyone joined. 7 civilizations, all ancient powers who could not accept equality with younger species, withdrew from galactic affairs entirely. They closed their borders and refused contact. Humanity let them go. The new Federation would not force membership. Isolation was a legitimate choice, even if it was a sad one. Admiral Minji watched the signing ceremony from Earth's Defense Command Center. She had fought the war, coordinated the strategy that broke the Senate's military power. Now she was overseeing the transition to peace. It was harder than war in many ways. In war, objectives were clear. In peace, everything was complicated. "Do you think it will last?" Commander Heejin asked. She stood beside Minji, also watching the ceremony. "Nothing lasts forever," Minji replied. "But if we build it well, it will last long enough for the next generation to improve it. That is all we can do." Captain Doyen was not at the ceremony. He was on a Krathos colony world, helping train local defense forces. The reform movement had promised that colony worlds could defend themselves without depending on homeworld military. That meant training, equipment, and support. Doyen had volunteered for the assignment. "You could be on Earth celebrating," one of his officers said. "You fought in the first battle. You deserve recognition." Doyen shook his head. "Recognition is nice, but this is more important. Making sure the new system actually works at ground level, that colonies really do have independence, that the promises in the treaty become reality." Across the galaxy, similar work was happening. Human advisors helped establish local governments on worlds that had never had autonomy. Engineers assisted in building infrastructure for civilizations that joined the Federation. Scientists shared research freely, something that had rarely happened under the Senate's restrictive technology sharing rules. Dr. Sunhee was coordinating a massive cultural exchange program. If the Federation was going to work, species needed to understand each other better. She organized student exchanges, diplomatic training programs, and joint research projects. It was slow work, building understanding one relationship at a time, but it was necessary. The old Senate controlled through fear and hierarchy, Sunhee explained during a planning meeting. The new Federation has to work through cooperation and mutual benefit. That requires actual relationships between species, not just formal diplomatic channels. Senator Jisoo became humanity's first representative to the Federated Systems Assembly. She arrived at the new assembly station, built in neutral space between several major systems, and found it very different from the eternal deliberation. The old Senate station had been grand and imposing, designed to intimidate. The new assembly station was functional and welcoming, with spaces designed for dozens of different species to work comfortably. The first assembly session was chaotic. 73 civilizations, each with different communication styles and cultural norms, trying to conduct business together. Arguments broke out over translation errors. Procedural debates lasted hours. Nothing happened quickly or smoothly. Jisoo loved it. This was what democracy looked like. Messy, loud, complicated, but real. Every voice could be heard. Every concern could be raised. It was inefficient compared to the Senate's streamlined dictates, but it was honest. "This is going to take forever," complained a young Krathos delegate after a particularly long session on trade regulations. "Yes," Jisoo agreed, "but it will be our decision, not something imposed from above. That is worth the time." General Junho retired from military service 6 months after the treaty signing. He had spent his entire career preparing for war with the Senate. Now that war was over and peace was beginning, it felt right to step back and let others handle peacetime. At his retirement ceremony, Admiral Minji presented him with a medal. "For strategic excellence and dedication to humanity's defense," she said formally. Then more quietly she added, "Thank you for getting us through this." Junho smiled. "I just followed the plan. Hundreds of people built that plan over 15 years. I am just the one who executed the final part." "Leadership is knowing when to execute the plan," Minji replied. "You did that perfectly. 20 years passed. The Federated Systems Alliance grew to include 92 civilizations. The structure evolved as problems were discovered and solved. Trade agreements were negotiated. Disputes were arbitrated. Scientific discoveries were shared. Slowly, carefully, the Federation became real. Boyoung, a young human engineer, stood on an observation deck of a joint research station orbiting a Krathos world. He was 23 years old, part of the first generation of humans to grow up entirely after the war. Around him worked beings from dozens of species, collaborating on a new type of faster-than-light drive. His mentor, an elderly Luminian scientist named Resh, floated beside him. Luminians did not walk in low-gravity environments. They glided, their silvery forms graceful and alien. Boyoung had grown up seeing aliens as just normal parts of life. To him, Resh was not a former enemy. He was just a brilliant scientist who happened to be Luminian. "Do you know what we are building here?" Resh asked. "A better FTL drive," Boyoung replied. "One that can cross the galaxy in days instead of weeks." "We are building more than that," Resh said. "We are building proof that cooperation works better than competition. This station has species that were trying to kill each other 2 decades ago. Now we work together on projects none of us could complete alone. That is the real achievement." Boyoung thought about that. He had studied the war in school. He knew his parents' generation had fought and died to create the world he now lived in. But to him, the Federation was just normal. It was the only galaxy he had ever known. That was perhaps the greatest sign of success. When revolution becomes normal, when change becomes tradition, when what once seemed impossible becomes ordinary. Ambassador Taeyang, now in his 70s, gave a speech at the 20th anniversary celebration of the Treaty of Seoul. He looked at the faces in the crowd, human and alien, young and old, and felt satisfied with what they had built. 20 years ago, the Galactic Senate declared war on humanity, he said. They thought they were ending a threat. Instead, they started a transformation. We fought that war not for conquest or revenge, but for the right to exist as equals. We won that right. But more importantly, we shared it. The Federation is not a human achievement. It is our achievement, all of us together. He paused, looking out at the diverse crowd. Some say humanity's greatest strength is our technology or our tactics. I disagree. Our greatest strength is our refusal to accept that the universe must remain as it has always been. We ask why things work a certain way. We imagine how they could work better. We are willing to challenge assumptions, even ancient ones. That is what made this Federation possible. Taeyang smiled, the same calm smile he had shown in the Senate chamber 2 decades ago. The Galactic Senate declared war on humanity. But we were already waiting. Not waiting for war. Waiting for the opportunity to change everything. And when that opportunity came, we took it. Together, all of us, we built something new. That is what humanity brought to the galaxy.